Welcome to Unit 2, Lesson 2, Mark His Words, where we're going to be learning about Mark Twain, or better yet, Samuel Clemens. Here is a quick overview of what you will need to complete for this online lesson. We will walk through some of these items, but you should try to complete these before coming to the flip follow-up session or the live session on this topic. And before we get started with the lesson, I want to give you a quick reminder, and that is where to find the notes guides by unit. So if you will go to your history course and click on content, and then click on the course materials tab, you will see a list of all of your course materials, and there you will find the notes guide by unit. You can simply click on the link and you can get the notes for this unit. So go ahead, print those out, and make sure that you are using those as you go through each lesson in this unit. So once you have those notes guides printed, you are ready to get started taking notes with this lesson. Today's objectives are to identify Mark Twain as the pen name of Samuel Clemens, the author of The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, and other novels, and also to explain the term Gilded Age. And we want to be able to describe Twain's dissatisfaction with the country during that period. So these are things that you're going to want to take note of as you're going through this lesson. Let's get started with the lesson introduction, Mark His Words. The United States was changing fast. In the late 1800s, sleepy towns began transforming into booming industrial centers. The great American writer, Mark Twain, captured the country's enterprising spirit in his stories. But Twain was also concerned that Americans were being corrupted by wealth and greed. Can you guess why he named this period the Gilded Age? So take a guess, and then we're going to take a more detailed look at why he named this period the Gilded Age. Also, don't forget those lesson resources. Click on that to get your student guide if you don't already have your printed version. So when you click over to your next slide in your online lesson, it says, how would you describe the Gilded Age? Do your words match those used by Mark Twain? You're going to read chapter 9 and complete the words tell the story sheet, and you're going to begin by following the directions in the student guide. So let's flip over to the student guide to get started. In the student guide, the first activity, Glitter and Gold, it tells us to read chapter 9, pages 46 through 49. So you can go ahead and pause the recording and begin reading that. And as you read, you're going to complete the words tell the story sheet. When you finish, compare your answers with those in the lesson answer key. So you can go ahead and get started with that, and we're going to review that in the flip follow-up. So read chapter 9, pages 46 through 49, and then try to complete your words tell the story sheet, and then we'll take a look at that in the flip follow-up together. Next, you will use what you know. So you're going to read the online flashcards, Schemers and Dreamers. Take a few moments to read pages 46 through 49 on your own, but just to highlight a few of the things that you're going to read about. Some people say that Mark Twain's books, like The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, is the best book ever written. He wrote a lot of other good books. They even said that Twain was like a storybook character himself. And as an old man, you can see he had a bushy white hairdo, bushy white mustache. He dressed in rumpled clothes and a white suit, and he went around the country telling stories and jokes. So he was a character all to himself. When he was young, he had the kind of adventures that the boys in Mississippi, growing up on a Mississippi river town, have. And later he put a lot of these adventures into his own books. His real name was Samuel Longhorn Clemens, and he grew up in Hannibal, Missouri, which is a town on the banks of the Mississippi River. As you move on to page 47, you learn a little bit more about Hannibal and how riverboat pilots were very common, and Sam grew up to be a riverboat pilot for a while, and that is where we get his pen name from, because it was important for the pilot to know the depth of the water when he was driving the riverboat. The call, Mark Twain, meant water 2 fathoms deep, which was 12 feet deep, and that was safe water for the riverboat. So that's where we get Mark Twain. He went on to be an apprentice for his brother at a printing shop, and he learned about the printing trade, and that's where he began to write. He began to travel all over the world, and he would write about what he saw and heard there. He went on to become a newspaper reporter, And there he wrote a story about a jumping frog, and that helped him to become famous. As you move on to reading page 48, you learn a little bit more about Mark Twain and his character, and you learn that Mark Twain had a way of writing that made people laugh, but then they realized that he really is saying something serious at the same time. And a lot of the undertone of his writing was saying that America was great, but its promise to offer freedom and opportunity to all was not being met. He goes on to talk about how Americans were becoming too concerned with making money and the nation was forgetting its ideals. So Mark Twain and his writer friend Charles Dudley Warner named the years after the Civil War the Gilded Age. And this name was inspired from Shakespeare, where it says, "To gild refined gold is wasteful and ridiculous excess." And Twain definitely believed that Americans were living in a time of ridiculous excess. You can read the little side note there about the Gilded Age excess. When Twain wrote Huckleberry Finn, he created two heroes, a slave, Jim, and a boy, Huck, who were both searching for freedom. So these undertones of his thoughts of America at the time can be seen in Huckleberry Finn. And it's really about the wonder of simple things, of friendship, of a great river, and the wish to be free. And as you move into page 49, you're going to just read a little bit more about Huckleberry Finn and how that book changed the direction of American literature. So Sam Clemens spent his boyhood in the antebellum, which is before the Civil War times. And after the war, people started thinking of those years as uncomplicated and idyllic. But that wasn't really true. If there hadn't been any problems, there wouldn't have been a war. But for a boy growing up in a river town, it seemed like a mighty good time. So this Missouri boy grew up to be a famous man and one of the best writers that this country has ever produced. Mark Twain's writing made him rich, but he never got fancy ideas or forgot where he came from. And he didn't ignore bad things in his writing, not at all. Sometimes he could get downright heavy about them, as we've kind of talked about how he dealt with the issues. But mostly he made us Americans think about who we are and what we want to be. You can continue learning more about Mark Twain on the PBS website, and that link is in your online lesson. So a quick lesson wrap up. Make sure you print that notes guide and start taking notes. We read chapter 9, pages 46 through 49. Make sure you have that read before coming to the follow-up. You're going to complete the words Tell the Story sheet, and we're going to review that in class. You can visit the Beyond the Lesson website to learn more about Mark Twain and be ready to share your favorite Mark Twain quote. I will see you on the flip side, so look for a flipped follow-up session in your Class Connect schedule. You can attend this live session to carry out this topic into further practice, and you can also attend the Help Lab sessions for extra support. Have fun, and I'll see you soon.